Let me start with a question. How many of you like Finland? Please raise your hand if you like Finland. All of the hands are going up pretty much. You have to do that, of course. So I have to admit, I love Finland. Finland is one of the least corrupted countries in the world. We are the happiest nation in the world for the 6th consecutive year. So what a great country to be in. However, there are also some challenges. So one of the things that I'm concerned currently is how do we fund our things such as our social security, healthcare, elderly care. So we have currently around 10 billion euros per year public deficit. So why is that? Well, let's have a look at some data. So I have here some data about the productivity development in Finland for the past few decades. And arguably productivity is the number one thing that drives our economic growth and well-being in the longer term. So Finland experienced exponential productivity growth from the Second World War all the way until something like year 2007, 2008. We may all know what happened then, but for the past 15 years, we haven't really seen any productivity development or much of it, which is a huge problem. So to understand this issue a bit more in detail, we need to look into how the productivity differs in different sectors of Finnish economy. And for that, we'll be looking into that period when we still had the productivity growth in Finland. So here are some data about the different sectors in Finland and how productivity has developed there. So you can see that there's quite vast differences. And how do the different sectors then rank here? Well, number one, maybe not surprisingly, is manufacturing. Manufacturing has been the backbone of our economic growth throughout the 20th century and even after that. Maybe more surprisingly, primary production ranks second, so essentially agriculture and mining. Some of the industries that haven't done so well is construction, so lagging far behind here. Construction is a bit funny industry, somewhere between manufacturing and services, and we're not going to focus on that today. But other industries here are those of services, so different types of services. And as we can already see from the graph, services have been quite problematic in terms of productivity growth. And it's quite difficult to find ways to improve service productivity, which is quite problematic, particularly if you consider that around 70% of our economy consists of services. So we really need to find ways to improve the productivity of services. Okay, so how do we then try and improve productivity? Well, I'm from the field of operations management, and there are some principles that we use. So let's consider that we are Tesla. We're about to start the manufacturing of a new car. So what do we do first? One of the first things that we need to do is to build a factory. And the reason for that is that we want to isolate our production system from any external disturbances. We don't want to have the weather to impact our production, and we don't want to have any unwanted people to impact our production, right? After that, we use standardization. So we standardize the inputs to the production, and we standardize process steps as well. And this will allow us to use some automation and specialization. So essentially, we can put the robots into the factory, and they can do the job for us, right? So the end result can look something like this. So here we have a warehouse that is fully automated. This is in the UK. It's run by a company called Ocado. So there are some robots here that drive along this grid system, and they are picking some grocery items from the containers below, and they deliver those to individual customer orders. All of this is managed by algorithms and a computerized system. So this is hugely efficient and productive. And these principles that you can see here that I just mentioned, we have been utilizing those in manufacturing with great results, as you saw in the previous slide on productivity development. But are we able to use the same principles in in services as well? Unfortunately not. So what is the reason for that? Why can't we use the same principles for services? You can see the reason there. So people like you, people like me, we are all different. So if we consider that somebody would like to have their car repaired, they need to take the car to the repair shop. And this makes the repair shop's life difficult because they receive different kinds of cars, different sizes, different brands, and they need to arrange their production so that they are able to manage all of this diversity and this variation that customers like us, what we create to the production system. So if we talk about service productivity, the ways that we can manage this variation that customers induce to the production system, this is going to be the bottleneck for improving the productivity. And arguably, the service providers need to find ways to manage this interaction between ourselves and the service production system. Now, all of this, what I've covered so far, this is on a very high level. But we need to get into more concrete level, right? And what we're going to do next is that we're going to map a particular service operation. We're going to map that process. And we do that through an example. So I've selected an example that is quite dear to me, and hopefully some of you also in the audience. So it's going to be university education. So maybe a bit daunting task. Try to improve the productivity of university education. Well, let's see what we can do about that. So for analyzing that process, I'm using here PCN diagram. So this is a tool developed by Scott Sampson in 2012. Here we focus on the interaction between the teacher as the service provider and the student as the service user. So here in the middle, you can see direct interaction. This is where the teacher and student meet face to face, like we do now. Then there are some independent processing on your left-hand side by the teachers, so we need to prepare ourselves without much of interaction with the students prior to the lecture. In between these two, there's something called surrogate interaction. This might not be so intuitive. So this is something where the teachers process the belongings or the information by the students. And if we have a look at how traditional lecturing operation may look like, here are the process steps that I suggest. So first we start with the assumption that the students are traveling to the campus. Might not happen always nowadays anymore. Then when they arrive, they already start to interact with the premises. And on the teacher's side, we prepare ourselves, the teaching materials, the technology. We go through previous year student feedback to understand what kind of things work, what we need to change. Then we're going to deliver the lecture. Students will hopefully attend the lecture. There's going to be hopefully some possibilities for the students to ask questions, and we'll provide feedback for them. Yep. So in reality, what could happen? Students could get bored, disengage. This is, of course, only in other universities, not in Aalto. Yeah. At the end of the lecture, we will announce homework. Student will go to home, hopefully do the homework based on our instructions. So this is the traditional lecturing process. But now we try to improve its productivity. So to be able to do that, we need to think about what is the value of this service operation. And the value is the learning of the students. Yeah. So regarding the value, how we can improve that, I need to rely on educational science literature. So colleagues such as Benjamin Bloom, John Hattie, they have found out that we should be supporting students in those more demanding learning tasks. Not only acquiring the basic knowledge, but being able to analyze, apply that knowledge, and so forth. And also, we should provide rich feedback to the students. This is something that helps very much the students to learn. And now that we talk about productivity, we are limited by the lecture hours, the time that we spend together. We don't want to increase that because we want to boost the productivity. So we should be improving the learning without adding more resources into this figure. So how we could do that? Well, we need to figure out what are some things that we can do elsewhere than the direct interaction, so outside of the classroom, to free some space for those more high value-adding tasks. So one of my candidates is delivering lecture, bit of exactly the same thing I'm doing right now. So maybe we could do this outside of the lecture room. And also announcing homework, we could take this outside of the direct interaction. And then we can spend more time on these higher value-adding tasks in the classroom. Okay, so if we look at how the redesigned teaching operation may look like. This is something called flipped learning, flipped classroom, probably familiar to most of you, I hope. So we still have similar kind of preparatory tasks, but on top of those, we will create video lecturettes to capture the essence of theories, tools, frameworks, and these are something that will provide the students outside of the classroom, and will announce them the preparatory tasks that they can do prior to coming to the class. And then we can also incentivize students to do this. So we can have some assessed tests, for example, multiple choice tests for the students based on those video lectures. And then when we meet up face-to-face in the classroom, students will not only attend but participate in the lecture, and we can focus on applying the knowledge that they have already acquired from the video lecture. We can apply that, carry out analysis of company cases, and we can focus on providing students feedback from the teachers, but also from peers, and from engaging with things such as the simulation environments. Now, this should arguably improve the value that the students are getting and improving their learning. Of course, we need to invest some effort into creating the video lecture, but this is mostly a one-off investment, so we could use those for several consecutive years. This is, of course, an approach that I have seen in many different departments and many different schools of Aalto nowadays. And this was one example of redesigning a service operation. I think we have still time for a couple of other quick examples to give you a little bit of flavor of how this could look like in different industries. So on the right-hand side, you can see what is automated restaurant. This is a company called Eatsa. So when you arrive at Eatsa, you make your order on a tablet, you pay there, and after they have processed your order and prepared your food will appear in some of these cubicles. You see your name there, you tap twice and you can get your food. So you can get your food without any interaction with the service personnel. Very suitable for the Finnish culture as well. On your left-hand side, you can see an automated metro. So this is from Copenhagen. And they have the metro without any drivers, unlike in Helsinki. So this enables them to reduce the operational costs. And if we remember that the key here is to manage the interaction between the service users and the service provider. So how do they do that in Copenhagen? Well, you can see it in the figure here. This is going to be those glass doors. So they will only open when there's a metro train, and when there's not, they will close, and they will disable passengers to interact with the track, because this would disrupt the productivity. Yes. Then we have digitalized services, platform-based services. So think about making travel arrangements with companies such as Trivago, Momondo. We may have the illusion that we are free to interact in any way that we wish with their digitalized platform. But in reality, this definitely is not the case. They are controlling the interaction very, very carefully. So essentially, we are only able to select from a menu of choices, even though the menu is very long. So we can choose where are we going, when, with whom, and so forth. But still, they are controlling this interaction very carefully, and the purpose is that this enables them to fully automate their service provision, which is going to be effective and productive. So I would like to conclude now with a task. So the next time that you're going to be using a service, pay attention to the ways that the service provider manages the interaction that you have with their service provision system, and consider how this may have some impacts on the productivity. So thank you very much.